Good morning. So yes, thank you for coming. And what we want to do this morning is just kind of make sure that everybody knows what is needed of you and knows who you can get a hold of if you need some support or help. Has everybody taken a look at the website? Great. And what about the Moodle site? Yes, no, maybe? Okay. So we've set up a Moodle site, and everyone's been invited?
Yeah.
So you'll have an invitation. If you, for some reason, don't know where that is, you can just ask Julie and she can shoot you an email. On the Moodle site, there's just some supporting documents, maybe if you have questions about the reflective essay, or if you, there's a couple of readings on there that are sort of related, a few links to global competency. So when you're getting ready to either write your reflective essay or to do the give back portion, you might find some things there that are useful and give you some good ideas and that kind of thing. There's some examples there of what is a good reflective essay. There's some examples there of different kinds of give backs. And in terms of the give back, you can do a lot of things. So some students have done video, or some have written an article, some have done a presentation. Many students do a poster during International Days in the Global Village. So there's lots of options. It's just a way of sharing with other students and the TRU community sort of what your experience has been. So you can be creative with it, or you can be more academic. Some students have given presentation in their class, for example, so it's a little more academic. Others, we're still waiting for our first rap song, but so there's lots of leeway. And again, on the Moodle site, you'll see some examples there. And if you have any questions at any time, Julie and I can both tell you about that. So I introduced myself to everybody, but not the camera. My name is Kyra Garson, and I'm the Intercultural Coordinator for the Center for Student Engagement and Learning Innovation, which is where the program comes out of. And so what we want to do today is just make sure that if any questions you have can be answered, and to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. One of the things we've noticed over the few years of rolling out the program is that there's really mixed understandings depending on discipline and past experience about what we might even be talking about. What is global competency, right? So on that Moodle site, there's a couple of readings that might help you to get an idea of what the institution thinks it means. But first, what we wanted to do is ask you guys what you think it means. And so we're gonna have a little bit of fun and maybe get into, do you wanna be with the guys or the girls? I'd go with the guys, really. So we'll just get you in a couple of groups, and what we want to do is have you write, draw, make whatever you want about what you think global competency means to you, right? And then we'll come back and see. So the question is, so what is global competency and why is it important for you, right? So draw, write, have a little discussion, and we'll see what you come up with in like 5 minutes. Yeah, does everybody have a pen? You can just make a big mess. It's not graded. Have fun.
And I'm doing this with my Mac.
Yeah, there you go. Make a diagram.
Yeah.
I really don't want to be filmed right now. Can you tell? Let's see, you guys have globally minded, intercultural awareness, becoming aware of others, globalization, versatility, personal growth. And you guys have, it's going to complement your university degree, yes. Going the extra mile, global community interaction, a foothold in employment. What do you mean by that?
It would sound good, like for two of us want to get going in international sort of stuff. You're international business?
We live in Colombia.
Yeah.
So just having something that's not global, I think we thought would be a strong suit in trying
Sure.
to get where we want to go in the future.
Sure. So as a credential, it's important. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's why we created it, right? So that you can then have that on your resume and that type of thing, right? And you know, so we've got the professional piece, right, for you guys. But over here, these girls have got a little focus on the personal piece, right, as well. And really one of the things that we are hoping is that we combine these two things as a sort of citizenship piece, right? Global citizenship is a little bit of a tricky term. What does that really mean, right? Who gets to be a global citizen? Certainly we have the advantage that we can sit around and talk about these things, right? Whereas others don't. But so to think about it, and you guys have got globally minded citizen, which I like more than the idea of global citizen, right? Because what does that really mean, right? So great, so there's the professional, there's the personal, and then there's the whole sort of civic thing. What can we give back, right? So when you do have a chance, if you do have a chance to go on the global thing, you'll find the idea of global competency in higher education is kind of a new thing, but there has been some research done, and there's a few definitions. So a fellow named Bill Hunter out of the US has created this model, and it encompasses a little bit of what you guys have, right? So there's the intercultural piece, collaboration you guys got here, but then coming into this whole piece around self-awareness, which is the personal piece, right? So it's a combination of sort of inner and outer, internal outcomes and external outcomes maybe. And this is the definition that he offers, is sort of having an open mind while actively seeking, right? So we're not just sitting back, and clearly from your experiences you guys are already doing that. So understanding cultural norms, expectations, but also not just understanding them, but then doing something, right? So it's the action piece that I think is important in the global competency, and as you bring together your portfolio, that's what you're doing, is giving evidence of what you've done. And so some of it you may have done in the past, many of you guys, but sometimes we have students that haven't done that yet and are looking for ways to get engaged. So here is, whoops, this is weird. Here's a definition that I kind of like, because it's talking about skill development too. So it's not just thinking about these things in a sort of attitudes. We can have attitudes, knowledge, and skills, right? And in order to really build competency, what we're talking about is skills, not just having curiosity and all of those things, but really being able to work effectively. So building the skills out. Hi. So this I like because he's talking about really thinking about global issues. So, and being active and advocates, and maybe even working towards change, right? Whoops, we got it wrong one. So one of the things we ask you to do, and we just want to set you up to be ready to do this today, is the reflective paper, right? Have any of you thought about that? You're done?
Yeah, I'm going to get people to look over it, but it's
Okay, great. So one of the things that we ask in that, and this is one of the reasons why we want to bring everybody together, is that we've had a lot of students have challenges with the reflective essay because they may just sort of list things that they've done. And what we're really looking at is what knowledge, skills, or attitudes have you gained from these experiences? So you've gathered these experiences together, right, in your portfolio, but what have you gained is what we're really looking for in those essays. So how have the experiences affected you? Have they changed the way you think about things? Have they changed the way you do things, the way you behave, or have they changed your attitudes, right? So what we're looking for in those reflective papers is a little bit of a shift in some way, right? So it's not enough just to say, I went and studied abroad and I did this, this, and this, and a list of things, which is quite commonly what we get, but rather what happened, what's different now. And when you go on the Moodle site, you'll see the way we framed it is sort of what happened, why is it important, and then now what, right? What does it mean, right? So is that where you're at? So, help, it's not working. So what we're looking for and what we ask, and it's okay if you end up crossing over one or more of these categories, but the simplest way in a short, because it's 500 words or something, right, is choose one, right? Choose how has if your learning is focused on knowledge, then just focus on the knowledge thing and write about that in your reflective. Or if it's skills, or if it's attitudes, that's probably the simplest. If you want to try to connect all three or one or more, that's fine. But this is what you'll see on the website and in the Moodle, some ideas. We're not limited to this, but so what I'd like to do is ask each of you just to think about which area you might focus your paper on. Would you think about knowledge? Would you think skills or attitudes? So maybe just take a minute to think about which one of those do you think you could provide some evidence of maybe a shift or a change either to your attitudes or your behaviors or your skills. So for now, choose one. Which one do you have chosen, Sean?
I did attitudes.
Okay.
Got a lot of to do with empathy and patience.
Okay.
Not only in regards to when I'm dealing with people from other cultures, I'm a lot more patient and helping them, helping us both figure out what we're trying to communicate.
Okay.
But also, just in everyday life, I'm more patient with all situations.
Okay, right. So you're focused your whole reflection on attitudes. Nice. So I think that's the easiest approach. So again, sometimes we'll get papers that are just listing experiences. Other times we get ones that try to tell us about all three of these, which is really hard in 500 words, right? So ideally keep it simple. So if you had to choose right now, which one of these would you choose?
For me, I choose attitude.
You'd choose attitudes as well, okay. And you would too, wow, we're on a roll. How about for you?
I would choose knowledge.
Knowledge, okay, okay, nice.
Attitudes.
Attitudes? I'm happy about that. What about for you, Alan?
I will choose the skills, but mix it with attitude as well.
Okay, so a combination, right? So on the Moodle site when we're leading students so it's 500 words, right? Not much. So again, we're sort of saying what. Start with the what. Tell us what you learned. So if it's the skills for you, the attitudes, what was it that happened? So choose one or more, but ideally because it's short, right? A learning experience that, and again, you're trying to demonstrate that you've developed some kind of global competency from this, right? So that's the focus. Is it knowledge, skills, or attitudes? And you've all, so now why is it important, right? What does it mean? So it's great that you changed your attitude, but sort of who cares, right? Then we want you to be able to describe how that changed the way, so if your attitudes, how did your attitudes change? What was the shift? If it's knowledge, how did that knowledge provide a shift in how you might approach situations or so on, right? And then finally, how will you use this? And this is the important part that many students in their paper kind of miss, right? So when we're reading them, so we have a team of faculty members from across different disciplines, and at least 2 faculty members will read your paper, right? We don't know who you are. They come to us anonymously, and we review them. And then we discuss whether we think the outcomes have been achieved. And I can tell you from reading many, many of them, this is the part that we're constantly looking for and not always finding, right? So what we'd like to know is why does it matter, right? How will you do something? What's the shift, right? So for example, if you're going to talk about attitudes, could you just give us a slight idea of what you might do here? 1 or 2 words for each?
Well, for me, I was thinking about when I went on the field school and worked with the Romani people. So the biggest thing I learned is like lots of the issues, there's not a black or white or like a right or wrong. They're really complex and you kind of have to understand the culture and the history to really understand what's happening.
Okay.
And for me that was big because I kind of went there with little or no understanding what was going on.
Right.
And then for me, it's important because you can apply that to other issues as well. Like for lots of these human rights issues, you have to look at the cultural context, you have to look at the historical context. So you can apply that to other issues. Right, so do you see how you kind of just step through this? So that's your reflective paper. Flesh it out a bit with some details and you'll be good to go, right? Again, often what we get is this, and these pieces are weaker, right? And then it gets sent back to you and we have to go through the whole thing again. Shannon, do you think yours is do you want to try this?
Yeah, I did a study abroad in 2012 and I went to Wales. And while I was there, I would put in, I didn't know that they had a different language, so that kind of hit me over the head when I got there. But in my essay, I kind of outlined that I went through a personal attitude adjustment in 3 areas. So it was I think it was patience, empathy, and appreciation.
Okay, so that's here.
And so why it's important, well, I'm more patient with people, not only from different cultures, but in every aspect, be it
Okay.
working in school groups. You know, if somebody's going through a hard time, I can be more patient with them if their assignment is going to be late for my group or something.
Right.
Empathy, it's easier for me to understand where new visitors to Canada are coming from because I've been in a situation
Right.
where I didn't know the language. And I have a lot more appreciation, not only for my own culture as a Canadian, but for people from around the world who are going outside of their comfort zone
Okay.
and trying something new.
And then you'll carry that forward,
Yeah,
assuming,
yeah, and it
right?
goes on.
Okay. Jordan, yours was knowledge, right?
No, mine was that.
Oh, sorry, attitudes. Do you want to give us a
Sure,
quick idea?
So I really didn't get involved in much until just my third year of university, and then when I was studying abroad, and since I've been back, I started getting more involved in different community things and
Okay.
groups at school, so I work with the Trans Club and stuff.
Okay, so that's in the what?
Yeah, I don't remember what. So I've just developed more of a concern for world and social issues from that,
Okay.
especially because I'm in geography, so we were looking at sort of urban issues.
Okay.
And so it's kind of sparked the fire, and we decided to try to pursue that one. So
Mhm.
do something that will make a difference. So I guess I think more of my
So that's here, right? So what, and so when you get to that point, and I mean, I'm putting you a bit on the spot, right? But when you get to that point, just try to articulate what you might do or what you'd like to do, right? It sounds like a bit of activism in some way, right?
Yeah,
I'm getting that.
Get out and go somewhere where I can do some good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Live in Africa or somewhere.
Yeah, and so get specific for the faculty that are reading it about what you'll do. So I just caution you that you don't want to say, oh, I just want to go to somewhere, right? It's great that you want to go to somewhere, but how does that relate to developing global competency, right? So it's not just about you going out to save the world, but rather what good it will do, right? So does that make sense? Yeah, great. Yours was knowledge. So let's get a knowledge example. How would you do that?
I want to talk about the Sugar Field School, and our main focus was on policy, and because it's a communist country.
Right.
We talked about what I learned, like how their ideology works.
Okay.
Why is it important? The comparison between that ideology and the ideology we have in Canada,
Mhm.
and how we can bring what they have into our policies. And then how I would use that is how resourceful they were, like how they were able to get everybody to go to school for free with having so little, and what kind of principles they had in their policies. I can use that.
Okay.
Organizations and context.
Nice. So, and that's that. You know, you're really going through these from a professional point of view, right? And coming out. So you see that it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm going to do something different in my personal life. You're saying I want to make a change to policy, right? So that's great. Your turn. Lead us through.
Yeah, sure.
You're next.
I started traveling. One of the main purpose was to learn the language.
Yeah.
Was in Brazil, learn Portuguese, and then I went to the States to learn English,
Mhm.
and then I decided to come to Canada to improve my English, and then ended up like transferring everything here.
Yeah.
So for me, it would be like like learning like language, and as well I transfer everything here to take my business courses here.
Okay.
So I would say that.
So that's
Yeah, the
it.
aspect would be knowledge or skills. I don't know, like.
Well, language is a skill, but you
Okay.
might also talk about how gaining the knowledge to apply the skill, right?
okay.
So yours is, yeah, you could go both ways, right? And we don't want to limit you. I mean, if you end up with all three, knowledge, skills, and attitudes, that's great. But what we've observed is it's really hard to do all three in a 500-word
Yeah,
paper,
that's-
right? And so what ends up happening is that you don't get to hear by the end of the page, right? So then why is it important and how?
Because it's important to communicate with people, to share your ideas, your opinions, when you are working in a team
For
or
sure.
on your social life, right? It's important to communicate.
Mhm.
So I would say that that's the important thing. And how will I use this learning? Well, I'm using it right now. As well, because it's my last semester, I'm planning to
Okay.
apply for a job here in
Okay.
Canada. So, of course, my communication skills are really needed.
Okay. And so you might do a little bit more reflection around how this develops global competency rather than just language competency, right? Because that's what the faculty members reading it will be looking for, right? So again, you know, we've seen many of these where I mean, a few of them where people are talking about having an experience like skydiving, right? And so we sit there and we think, well, okay, how does that relate to global competency, right? Yes, it was an experience that changed you personally, but you need to still make the connection to the global part. And I think you can do that easily, but just as you're thinking it through, maybe try to make sure you're having that connection. Does that make sense? Great, your turn.
Well, I did study abroad, so I guess that's kind of where I got most of my learning attitudes. Adjustment when I went to England. Just they're so different there, but I mean they speak the same language, but everything there is different, and I learned their culture a little bit better, and I really gained an appreciation for Canada.
Okay, so that's the what, right? Gaining. Okay,
Yeah.
so why is that important?
I think that's important because now I can. I don't know, it's hard.
Okay.
I can just appreciate things more while I'm here and kind of give back. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, so as you're thinking it through, do you see why we want you to kind of go through these steps, right? And you don't have to have the answers today. So what we're trying to do is get you to think those things through a bit. Some people here are clearly ready to go write their paper, and others will need a little bit more thinking. So, you know, I like your idea. So what you're really talking about, Melissa, right, is cultural self-awareness. Right? And that's a really, really important component of developing intercultural competency. So if you can think about how you can articulate why that will be important in your future or how you might be using that, I think you'll have a good reflection as well. And you're welcome to talk to us a little bit more about it. Okay, so does that make sense that that's kind of what we're looking for, right? And what you don't want to do is end up having to have your paper sent back a few times. All of you guys are clearly articulate in English, which isn't an issue, but because this is a 1-credit course, you're required to write at a university level. So if you need some assistance, you can go to the Writing Center or you can talk to one of us. We can read through. I don't think it's such an issue. Your English is great, but we do have a lot of international students who go through the program, and sometimes we need to adjust sort of that piece. So then we come back to, so you've got your forms, those are on the website, so you're counting through your points. Has anyone done that yet? You have. Okay, so do you want to articulate this, or shall I? So now there's a slight change that's new, and again, because the course is now a 1-credit course, there's a requirement that you provide a little bit of writing, a justification for why those points develop global competency, right? So in the past, students would just say, oh, I took international business 3510, right? But now we'd like you to say a few words about why international business 310 actually contributes to the development of your global competency. Or you might say, oh, I volunteered for international days, or I went on Developing World Connections. So we just want you to make that connection so that it's really clear to the faculty that are reviewing your portfolio that there's a connection to what you did and global competency, right? So that's a slight piece. And then the final piece, so there's the collecting of the points, justifying how that connects, the reflection, and then the final piece is, oh, sorry, oh my gosh. I'm having a bad day. The final piece is the sharing, right? And again, this can be done in all sorts of ways. And if you go on the Moodle, have you been on the Moodle site? Yeah. So there's a couple of pretty good examples, but you're not limited to those things, right? So you can write a blog, you could upload a video. There's examples of a video on the Moodle, right? You could write an article for the newspaper, Kamloops newspaper, student newspaper, presentation in class. We've had students that have gone to like Rotaract and given a presentation. Do you guys do presentations at Developing World Connections, like go to high schools and things like that?
Was it good if I wanted to?
Yeah, so anything like that, I mean, yeah, if you wanted to. So it's about your learning. It's trying to show why this might be important and maybe motivate or inspire other people to do things as well, right? The Global Village is during International Days. It's it's a mobility part of International Days. Have you guys gone to that? Yes, a couple of you. So a lot of students do posters there, and people will come by and talk to you like a conference kind of poster. And if you want to do that, we have guidelines about where to get it printed, how to set it up, everything. It's quite easy, so you can get a hold of Julie if you want to do that. But again, it's not limited to these things. So if you've got some other creative idea. So Shannon, are you at this stage?
Yeah, the Ambassador Diaries.
Okay.
So there's a video, but I might tweak it a little bit, make it a bit longer.
Okay.
But, I've got the foundation for it.
Okay, great. Anybody else have ideas about their give back? Melissa?
Yeah, Tuesday. I haven't quite put the presentation back together, but I asked my teacher. She said I can do it.
In class, okay. In which class?
It's a molecular evolution.
Molecular evolution. Wow, you guys want to go?
The teacher's the one who told me about this years ago. So
Oh,
she was
okay.
excited about it.
Great, great. Who's the teacher?
And Ethan.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, okay.
I presented the TRU undergrad conference last year, so I have a paper. Is that okay?
Yep, yep. And so just include that in your portfolio as evidence, right? And that's great. Exactly, perfect example. So TRU undergrad conference is great. In fact, that's even more than we would ask, so that's great. How about
The same.
the same? So as long as it connects to global competency, right? So,
I present my country during the Global Village last year.
okay.
So
Perfect. Yeah, so just provide some evidence of that in your portfolio and you're great. How about for you? You got an idea?
I'm not sure.
Are you going to be my first rap song? I'm waiting. I'm really eager. And for you?
I'd like to do a presentation, but I don't really know when or where, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah, and you can talk to us for some ideas about that. The high schools are even good. At International Days, you could do something in a class. At the research undergrad, these guys have done. What else?
Those
Have you
ones
seen-
might be a bit late because it has to be done for the semester though.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. So, but absolutely feel free to shoot us an email with ideas or if you need some ideas. Depending on your class, you might be able to do a short presentation there. And if all else fails, writing a short piece for the Omega is also good, right? The idea, again, is to demonstrate that this has been a good experience or that maybe to inspire others, right? Okay. So there's basically those three pieces, right? The points in your portfolio, the reflective paper, and then the give back. And it sounds like everybody's got a pretty good idea of where they're headed. And so, so go on the Moodle website. Before you write your paper, you might want to, there's a reading on there that I adapted from an Asia Pacific Foundation paper. If you're feeling like you're not sure you have the right language to connect to global competency, you might want to just scan that paper and see what sort of is there. There's also a link to Bill Hunter's model of global competency. Again, there's good language there. So if you're thinking, oh, I'm not sure how to articulate why this is important, that might give you a little boost in terms of that. So take a look on there. It's not like an extensive Moodle course. There's just some links and some documents, some examples there that might really help you. And so take a look at what's there. And if you need to download forms and things, the link is in the Moodle for this, but most of you have been on the website already. Yeah, so we're going to be moving everything kind of into the Moodle and then a link out to there's a link there, right? So the Moodle's kind of your go-to, and then you can get all the resources that you need from there. All right, oh, hilarious. Okay, and this is us. So Julie is your go-to for any kind of technical, what you need in terms of points, or if you have questions about is this a good give back or any of those things. You can also contact me. So I'm the faculty member that's assigned to the course. But again, I have a committee of faculty right now. We have 4 that are all in different disciplines that will be reviewing things. So if you have questions about the paper, maybe you can direct those to me as well if you're concerned about that at all. Okay, questions?
I did have a question about the portfolio in general. You said that we should justify the points How would you guys like that set up specifically, if there's any way?
The form is on the Moodle site,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So it'll walk you through it. It's not a big thing, so we don't want an essay about why it's important, just a few words. So what we want to encourage you to do is to actually make the connection, not just to say, I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this, but to say, how does that actually lead to the development of your learning, right? Yeah, so it's a couple sentences really,
Yeah,
right?
it's just a box open for you and you just specify which category you got the points in. So you just fill that in and then specifically talk to, say you took courses, what you learned from those courses that relate to global.
And then like maybe behind that, because we have to have like documents.
The
people
forms.
sign it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can just staple those.
So
all.
there, if on the Moodle site, you'll find that form. And it's literally, it's just a little box. So we don't want your life story. We just want you to actually articulate what's the connection, right? Great. Yeah.
Is that description just with the classes that you take, or
Any of the categories for points.
Oh.
Yeah, so for example, if you volunteered at Kamloops Immigrant Services, we want you to say 2 or 3 sentences about how that contributes to your development of global
But in
competency.
my case, I present an international exam for Portuguese.
Okay.
To do that well now, like to write that description.
And some of them will be more obvious than others, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you don't have to tell us something that's really obvious, but what we've found, particularly with courses, if we haven't taken the course, just because it has the word international in it, doesn't necessarily mean that we know that the course content, you actually learned something that contributes to global competency. So we just want to get a sense that you've actually made the connection between course content or the experience of volunteering or whatever else it is. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's just a couple of sentences. Have you done that, Shannon, or
No, I
are we
don't know
springing this on you?
All my just added it last.
Yeah, and maybe, we can talk about that. It's been added because as an actual academic credit, we need to ensure that there's some connection for you guys there. And in the past, this certificate wasn't an academic credit, right? So it wasn't asked for that, but now that it is, we have to have a little bit more parameters for students, yeah. So, and the question of whether you're getting an academic credit for this, but you're getting points for maybe courses you took. So making sure that if someone asks us, we can say, well, here's what they learned towards global competency from that course. So they're not double dipping to get academic credits across the board. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jordan, any questions?
The signature documents need signed.
Sorry?
I heard some people with documents that need.
Oh, the forms that you need to collect your points, sometimes those need to be signed, not always.
For a class.
So if it's a class, no.
We just need a copy, unofficial copy of your transcripts and just highlight the courses that count towards the certificate. But the things like other international experiences where people are sometimes counting their personal travel, that's where you may need to get the form signed by somebody verifying that you did go where you say you went and providing maybe that paragraph about where you went and when and maybe some pictures or something else to help verify.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just so that you're kind of documenting.
Study abroad or?
Study abroad is on your transcripts.
Yeah, so for the most part, your transcript does a lot of it, and you don't need signatures. But again, if you volunteered for Kamloops Immigrant Services or International Days, you could just get whoever was the leader of that project to just sign off that you actually did that, and so that we know, right? Yeah. Question,
Can we
Shannon?
get, I think 2 or 3 of mine need to be signed, but can I get the same person to do it, like for my ambassador work?
Yeah, Carrie Russell will be your, yeah,
And
not
then
a
she knows
problem.
about my travel while I studied abroad?
Yeah.
So it's okay if she signs off on more than one?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not to put you through a whole tedious process. It's just to eliminate the possibility of students saying, yeah, I went and did this when they really just stayed home and watched a video, right? So we just, for things that we don't have some kind of evidence for, it's just to check that, yeah.
If we do have evidence for something like personal travel, should we include it? Like I have my itinerary that I had to send to my ISA while I was abroad. Should I include that or?
Why not? Yeah, sure.
If you have it.
We want your boarding passes.
I have all my train tickets.
You probably do.
That's awesome.
All right. Fetish, do you have any questions? You're good?
For the essay, is there just a focus on one
We get a variety, right? But what one of the messages, I guess, of today was that the easiest thing for you to do is focus on one of those categories, knowledge, skills, or attitudes. If you want to give us, so yours was knowledge, I thought yours was fine. You can give a couple of examples or you can focus on one thing, but make sure that you're demonstrating some kind of a shift and a so what, right? So it's kind of like what, so what, now what, right? If you think about it that way, it's really simple. And because it's so short, you need to kind of think it through ahead of time. Like you've done today, I think yours will be fine, right? But what they'll be looking for, and again, it might not be me reading it, they'll be looking for that kind of evidence of some sort of a shift and some sort of praxis, that you're actually going to use your developing global competency to do something, either personally, professionally, civically, something, right?
So
Yeah.
for everybody, I have sent out an email to our faculty group that do review the essays to ask if any of them are available for 2 dates in November where they can sit in here, and if you have questions about if you're going in the right direction with your essay, they can then read it over and give you some feedback on it before you actually hand it in. So if that will help you guys in that way, I will send out an email with a confirmation of one of the dates in November where somebody will be available in this classroom and you can bring in a draft of your essay, get them to look it over a little bit and give you feedback if there would be changes or
Yeah. What was the tentative date again?
17th or the 4th, or sorry, 7th or the 14th.
Right. And
would be the
yeah,
same
I'm in
time.
Colombia, so I won't be able to do that. But
Yeah.
for sure, they'd be happy to do that. And then that way you can avoid, because I think what tends to happen is if students aren't making the mark, then the faculty members will review it and end up sending it back to you, and then it comes back to you while you're trying to get prepared for exams and you're busy doing other things. And so we'd rather support you to get it right the first time, and then you're good to go and you can focus on other stuff. Make sense?
Is the presentation on that presentation?
Which presentation?
This
This one? Yeah. It will be in an hour.
It will be.
Yeah, okay. So absolutely, if you have any other questions, you can contact us at any time. Our contacts are also on the Moodle. Just shoot us an email and we're happy to help you. Make sure that you get what you need and get it all done. So if there's no other questions, we're good?
Thank you.
Excellent. Enjoy the rest of your day.